to talk about the current state of events and what a weird year and a half it's been. We've all kind of shared these challenges, frustrations, successes, kind of all in our online community of craft professionals. But as we get a little less virtual and back to more in-person encounters, experiences, and events, I think it's really important we talk about the planning that goes into, making these events successful. And the four of you reached out because you are in some capacity starting to think about planning events again. You might already be holding events in your tap room. So over the next hour, I'm really looking forward to diving into the strategies you're thinking about as you begin to welcome a ton more people back to your tap room and host special events. People are craving interaction, and I know it's our goal to provide them the most safe and enjoyable experience possible. But we're going to start with some basic introductions. Muriah, you are to the right of me, so tell everybody about who you are and what you do.
My name is Muriah Kilmer. I am the General Manager and Events Coordinator for Freedom's Edge Brewing Company in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And on top of that, I also do all of our label design, all of our merch design. I'm kind of a Jane of all trades in the front of house, I suppose.
Well, thanks for joining us today, and it's really nice to see your face to face as opposed to just that little, avatar next to your Facebook name, because I know you're so active in the online communities.
Yeah,
Collean, you're not too far. Go ahead, Muriah.
No. I just think that that's something that's important, is to be interactive with other people. Just everything that we throughout the whole brewery have learned through that group is really great. So I'm really glad to be a part of it.
Awesome. Well, welcome today. And Collean, you're not too far from me. You're actually in my favorite place to just get away. When my wife and I don't know where we want to go, Charlottesville, Virginia is always a great place in the Shenandoah Mountains just to explore, have some good beers. And you're with Three Notch Brewing, and you have quite a few locations, but tell everybody else, about what you do.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I am our Director of Retail Revenue. I manage all of our public and private events in all four of our locations, as well as our merch programs and our membership programs. But right now, the focus is definitely events. I think Katie said it, whether we like it or not, it's happening. So I'm stoked to kind of get some pro tips from other professional ladies in the industry. So excited to be here.
And you know what? When I initially put out the call for people to join this conversation, I didn't intend to find four great women in the craft beer industry, but that's just the way it turned out. I'm really looking forward to it. And Katie, you and I have had lots of conversations over the pandemic. Katie and I have been part of a weekly meetup every Tuesday that initially started as preparing our session for CBC in September, but when that initially got postponed, I guess last year now, it's been quite some time, we just kept having these meetups. And I think I've learned so much from Katie over the past almost year and a half now. And just these conversations with our peers nationwide, it makes me wonder, why weren't we connecting more even before the world shifted so virtually? So it's great to learn from others, like you said as well, Muriah. But for Katie, everyone who doesn't know you as well as I do, tell everybody a little bit about SCA and what you do.
My name is Katie Nierling, and I am in Boulder, Colorado, which is a beautiful, sunny, warm, adventurous place to be, and of course a hotbed for craft beer and craft distilling. And my company is the joint venture of SCA Brewing from Durango, Colorado, and Peach Street Distillers in Palisade, Colorado. So we are brewery and distillery and restaurant all in one shared space.
And I would love for you to share that awesome road trip map you shared last night. Tell everybody the concept, because I think people will really appreciate that.
I totally, and I'll go grab one in a second. So Durango is 6.5 hours from where I am, and Palisade is about 4 hours from where I am. And why it occurred to us 20 years into business, SCA is celebrating 26 years this year, and Peach Street 16. And with us here on the Front Range, it's kind of a great opportunity for us to create this road trip. So I'll go grab a little map, but we are encouraging folks to visit Durango, Palisade, and here in Boulder. Start your road trip anywhere, anytime this summer. Get a stamp on the passport that we made, and at the end of your road trip, give us the little passport, and we're going to send you a branded hammock to continue your outdoor adventures.
I'm stealing
I
that.
absolutely. Colleen, you of all people, you should totally.
I mean, with all of our locations, how have we not thought of that? That's genius, Katie. Love it.
I'll get the little postcard. Pardon me.
Yeah. And Colleen, I will personally meet all the winners at your Virginia Beach location, which is opening soon, and congratulate them on visiting all 3 Notch tap rooms. So, and Katie is holding. Katie, for anyone right now, she's holding up a map of each of her locations, and they did a fantastic job. They took the Colorado Sea and they put an independently owned in text on it. And I described it this way last night. It almost looks like something you would have on a Letterman jacket, but it still has the ska feel. And I feel that map, it just conveys the ska branding, the whole concept behind it, the ska street road tripping. It's so cool. And Katie, how many people do you anticipate will complete this almost like, treasure hunt?
Hey, it's funny, since we posted it on social media, people are like, I've already done that like years ago, just by default, because it's so much about what Colorado people do in the summer anyway, is camp and road trip, and Durango and Palisade and Boulder are destinations for all the things. So the cycling group that we had last night, they're about all to go to Durango and do Ride the Rockies. So I gave them all their little passports. I would hope 50 actually make it to all 3, because it's 1,000 miles, around or more. So I would hope 50 people do it, but man, blow our socks off. Anyone that wants to come to Colorado and road trip it. And it's cool if you scan the QR code that's on the back of the postcard on our website. We have places that you can, our recommendations, like where you stay in each location, our favorite places to stay, and our favorite rafting guides, or our favorite fishing spots, or our favorite hikes, or little recommendations to do while you're in Boulder, Durango, or Palisade.
I love it.
I absolutely love it. That's such a great idea.
It's our own outdoor event. Look at it that way.
Right?
There we go. And Tiare, I appreciate you joining as well. And you are probably in the most open state of everybody. You're in Florida.
I'm actually in Houston, Texas.
Why did I think you were in Florida? Oh my gosh. Well, you're still pretty open, right?
Yes, we are very much open. So I was very anxious to hear what's going on in other states and parts of the country, because when I was looking at the questions on, what to expect, we're pretty much just thriving and kicking over here. So.
And what do you do at the brewery? Is it your brewery, or what's your role?
No, so I'm the general manager. Again, my name's Tiare Austin. I'm fairly new to the brew industry, very new, especially compared to you ladies and everybody in this forum. But I started out as a server when we first opened in 2018, and just as we expanded and grew, I picked up a few things: our social media, our marketing, our sales, purchasing. I was kind of next in line. There's not many of us here. And I was promoted to general manager back in September, right when we were reopening again in Texas. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, it's been quite the year of closures, reopenings. And, I got a little frustrated with the term new normal, because that's kind of what we referred to as the normal during the pandemic. I really hope we don't start hearing like new normal and expressions like that to just take it to the next level. But you heard it here first. We might start hearing that. But in Texas, because you have been a little more open than everybody else, what types of events did you start early on when you reopened in September, or were you open even prior to September?
So we were open and closed all throughout the summer. I think May we had a little pop where we were able to open again, and then shut down again in June, back open in July. So it was a lot of back and forth, but we have a lot of outdoor space. So as soon as we started taking customers and pouring again, the amount of requests for events and parties were coming through like crazy. And I mean, events for like 150 people. And a lot of our larger breweries like St. Arnold's and Carbach, Buffalo Bayou, they completely stopped hosting anything large. So they were coming up to smaller breweries and asking us for, open space. So the owners were pretty hesitant on what we should do, because it's the perception. We didn't want to look irresponsible. But we were opening up a few parties, close to about 50 people, but to where we used to have large events in one of, like, say, one garden can hold at least 120 people. We were opening up smaller events for like 40, 50. I think 60 was kind of the max that we did, all outdoors. So it was pretty limited. But that being said, here we are. It's already June, and I've got a few weddings booked up in the summer or in the fall coming through with 100 people. So what we're doing before, when you could have just part of a garden, now for anything over 100, you have to rent out the entire property just to be even more, I guess, open with our tap room and both beer gardens. The capacity is about 280 total. So anything that's 100 and over has to have the entire property. That's kind of our little.
Compared to pandemic levels, how busy are you with events?
Full force.
Wow, that's impressive. And when did you first start ramping them up? I mean, obviously in September when you first opened the tap room for good again, did you initially launch events then, or had it been a gradual addition over time?
So smaller parties and weddings we were definitely doing, but in terms of, larger corporate events or, we do a lot of animal rescue fundraising events and stuff like that. We hosted our first official one. I guess it was just last month in April. It's called Portraits for a Cause. Basically, you pay to get a really cute photo of your dog or your pet. And we hosted this event last year, right before the shutdown, back in like February. And we had about 400 to 500 guests come through just to get their photos taken with their animals. So it was owners and their pets. So we were very busy. But this year, the way they did it, just to kind of streamline it, instead of waiting in a massive line, they had an app service to where you could kind of check in and then you could hang out anywhere you wanted throughout the property. So that helped. Like I said, I have photos from last year's event and it was just crazy seeing the line of people. So this year, to streamline it that way really, really helped to just kind of space everyone out. And that was another huge successful event. I think they raised about $12,000. So that's a lot of pictures of animals.
Did you get one of your dogs?
That idea too. I'm getting so many good ideas from you guys.
I did.
That's adorable. That's such a great idea.
So just to show you, that's my dog.
I love it. That's awesome.
Beer and puppies, how can you go wrong?
Yeah.
But you also bring up a great point. I'm going to give a two-part question to everyone else today. First off, are you having events again? That's the first question. And secondly, Tiare, you mentioned the use of technology in helping streamline these events. Is everybody using some sort of new technology, whether it's just the basic QR codes or any unique apps or ideas that you kind of implemented to help your events go smoothly?
Something that not technology, it's certainly not new by any means. We go old school, I guess. When we have our really big outdoor events like street party style, because our brewery is really small, it's like 2,000 square foot, I think, brewery and tap room included, and we don't have an outdoor patio. So when we do want to have events during the summertime, we close down the street in front of the brewery. And we have some pretty big events that way, like far exceeding anything we could ever do within the tap room. And the biggest thing that we do to streamline that is we have like a check-in booth, and people, instead of like buying beers, they're buying tickets. So we do like buy one for $5 or buy 5 for the price of 4. And they're only good for today. And so it's like encouraging people to just, for one, when they go to get their beer, it's just this quick exchange. There's no money, no hassle. And then sometimes it might work out in our favor because not all those tickets come back that day. You know what I mean?
And to clarify, is that something you're doing strictly on event days or something you're doing in general?
We only do that for our really big events.
Great feedback. Then, no, Colleen and Katie, are you both holding events yet?
Yeah, we're holding events. I mean, we've always, Charlottesville specifically, I'm sure you've been to our location, is huge. And, our capacity inside for diners, is like 700 people. And that's if everybody has a chair. That's just, if I get rid of the furniture, I mean, it's way above and beyond. There was definitely a lull, kind of like they were talking about before. It's like we didn't do any events. And then a lot of our business is based off of UVA, the local, University of Virginia. And when they said that they were going to have graduation, which was not something that was scheduled, it was like the floodgates opened. And they actually did last year's graduation on one weekend and then this year's graduation on another weekend, which was a total shit show. I mean, it was like literally thousands of people coming in and out of the brewery. And, I wish we had had some kind of, technology to support us. It was like Muriah was saying, I like the old school approach. I like the ability and the opportunity to kind of almost over communicate with guests, like purchase this ticket and then you can walk up to the bar and just exchange it for a beer or a pint or whatever. I mean, for us, it was just like drinking from the fire hose right now. And we host a lot of rehearsal dinners and, these corporate UVA parties and stuff. And our public events have not been ramped up in the same way. Like that dog photo thing is such a great idea. If for no other reason than we have a dog happy hour, Pups and Pints, on Sunday afternoons, and we partner up with a local rescue organization, but throw a photographer in there and we'll probably have a line around the block. I mean, what a genius idea. And to use an app and kind of streamline it. I mean, the staff alone already kind of, hates me. So I love the idea of making it easier on them and making it easier on guests. And, Virginia's been really tough with regulations. I mean, we're still wearing masks at work. So, so I like the idea of wide open spaces and getting a text and come up now. And I'm stealing that dog photography idea. That's great.
I'm also stealing that. So we have 2 patios here and a big indoor space. The unfortunate thing about our indoor space is it's very segmented. So we really are relying on patios for our large parties. And we opened in the pandemic. And so it was really tough for us to navigate into the party season now that Colorado is a lot more open. And I think some of the best advice I received actually from my group with Andrew is really being clear in a contract with people. And I can't encourage that enough for people scheduling events, because I have in there a checklist where I'm asking questions from all of the guests, like, tell me about your event. Are you going to have toasts? Are you going to have decorations? Are you bringing in presents? Like, how can we best set up and meet your expectations so that once you're here, we can go beyond the expectations? But really, I think the thing that I've learned already in the couple parties that we've done is having that signed contract of a clear, like, what you are doing, what you are responsible for. And it's kind of like what Muriah said, it's old school to have a contract. But in that, we are also very clear as we are welcoming people back in this space that, I have a little section in my contract about COVID, and just that, I'll review any updates that are either health or city or county health updates at that point in time. But one thing that we've done that has really alleviated pressure is we ask the guests to stay in their designated patio or space and not come up to the bar and ask for drinks or ask for more food. We're staffing your events maybe more so than we would have in the past, so that you have those dedicated people in those dedicated spaces, and really asking all of the larger parties to not crowd in the entryway, not get up to the bar, and make that very clear in the contract. So anyone booking parties, I really have become a big fan of the contracts, talking to my staff, figuring out what makes their life easier. So they are wanting to kill me a little bit less, and putting that in writing and having folks sign it. And then that way you just have that, agreement upon with the people that you're working with. And that's helped already come in play when I had to remind somebody, like, no, remember, we said we weren't going to do that. You were going to be responsible for this. It's in your agreement. And it just has really helped the communication, and my staff feel comfortable to know that I'm protecting them health and safety wise, and giving them clear communication and clear expectations.
I think clear communication has been vital the entire pandemic, and I think it will continue to be vital. But I think a really good point you bring up, Katie, and Colleen, you mentioned it briefly as well, is seeing what your staff's ready for. I mean, while we do want to make sure we're blowing the minds of all the guests who are revisiting your tap room for the first time in a while, especially when they're coming to these larger events, but at the same time, you want to make sure that all your staff and employees feel comfortable. And Colleen, you mentioned you have a tap room that can hold 700 people. How does that make you feel, like on a personal level, going from quarantine not too long ago to a place where you could potentially have 700 people around you?
I mean, I have general anxiety just all the time. I feel like I'm like in pandemic fatigue at this point. I always say to people, like, it's a good thing we make alcohol. It's funny too, talking about contracts and stuff, because I think in the past, there was almost like pre-pandemic, it was almost like, oh, it's fine, we can handle that. Don't worry. Of course we can deal with surprises or toasts whenever, and we can think on our feet. But I think everybody right now on our side, and certainly due to a bit of understaffing struggles that we're dealing with, everyone's really tired, and like they don't have that kind of built up patience anymore, myself included. I adore our staff. They are absolutely on the front lines and they're crushing it every day. But, managing expectations, I think, is incredibly important right now. And like you talk about a toast, I was just booking a rehearsal dinner and the lady was like, we'll just do the toast whenever. And I was like, no, ma'am. I was like, I need to know what time you want that toast, what time my servers are coming into the space, how many ounces you want in that glass, what are you paying for? Just to, like you said, Katie, just get it all mapped out before, because the ability to manage surprises right now, it's not a thing. I mean, people are so nervous about, being back in public, and we're still at half capacity. I mean, we're not even at, full 100% yet.
And that's by choice, correct?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, in that we didn't put all of our chairs back out. Our governor said, go right ahead. No more social distancing, you can release the 50% capacity. For food and business, we can unmask. We just choose not to. We actually did a survey internally with all of our staff, including all of our locations, front of house, back of house, production, brewery, and said, how does everybody feel about taking their masks off? And you don't have to. If you don't want to, don't take it off. And if you're vaccinated, you can. It's just, at this point, I can't express this enough. Like our staff are bedraggled. I mean, that we are crushing them. And there's no way we could put all of our chairs back out. There's no way I could book a buyout right now and feel totally comfortable with being able to staff it at the level we could have pre-pandemic. And we're
going to dive into the staffing challenges shortly, but I love how you send out a poll to your staff at all locations to just gauge how they're feeling. Is that something you've done throughout the pandemic, or is it something you've launched when you were kind of looking at starting to have events again?
We do it all the time. Even almost pre-pandemic, we have a pretty amazing HR director, and she is very mindful of communicating with the staff. And I appreciate that. Certainly too, during the pandemic look, I'm working in my dining room right now, right? So we're not all seeing each other every day. We got a bunch of new people in the brewery, and I was like, who the hell are these guys? And it's just because I'm not there every day. And I think it's great that there's an effort from our leadership to check in with everybody, see how they're feeling anonymously too. I like the fact that it's on a piece of paper. You don't submit it by email. You pop in whenever you can. We even
That's so old school.
It is old school. You have to get out a pen, but
you ball it up and put it in a hat, then you pull it out and read it or something.
Yeah, you have to fax it in.
Muriah's going to be there to videotape your unveiling.
Yeah, people appreciate that their opinions matter, and they really do. I mean, we construct this policy based on the feedback that we get, and our suggestion box is in our brewery outside of where our cameras are. And so if you have a suggestion and you put it in there, it really is anonymous. I put so many suggestions in that box too. It's good. I think communicating with the staff, and Katie's right, managing those expectations of everybody, and the fact that, like you said, kind of feeling protective over the staff. That's how I feel right now. And I'm glad that there's other people out there who feel the same.
That's really great insight. Now, Tiare, I'd like to turn it to you because you're in Texas. You opened up a lot before a lot of other states. How do your staff feel about, having more events?
They're fine with it. I haven't had any real kickback on events. It can get overwhelming because we do have such a popular space because there's so much outdoor space. Our tap room has been at 50% since we were able to open. We actually changed the whole layout inside. We had a bunch of picnic tables inside, but instead we've changed the picnic tables to barrels with only 4 tops instead of 10 essentially. So we've kept that. So the inside never really gets too crowded unless it's raining or cold outside, which we did experience a few times. But for the most part, everyone's outside. It's fine. In terms of events and our general public, we used to host a number of parties, like on a Saturday, in a few different locations throughout the property. But moving forward, we have one designated area, and it's basically first come, first serve. Whoever gets that spot.
I think you might be slightly frozen right now, but we'll give you a sec. If not, Muriah, I would love to hear about how your staff feels about reopening at greater levels, having an event. How are you making sure you're making sure they're comfortable?
Oh, she's back.
Go ahead.
We have been also pretty open for a while over here in Wyoming. We joke that we've been social distancing since 1890 because the population to square foot ratio of land here is just ridiculous. So, and then I guess our restrictions have been less everywhere else. Because we're lower populated, I guess. We don't get 700 people coming into our tap room ever. We have 36 or 37 seats in there. So I think our staff is excited. That's something that we're known for here is the events that we do. And we actually just had one of our city council members get an amendment for an open container ordinance here in downtown Cheyenne from Memorial Weekend through Labor Day. And so that's actually a great benefit to us considering we don't have an outdoor patio. Before it was you can't take your beer outside unless we have a street party. And now it's sure, go stand outside with your beer if you want to, but our staff are, they're great. We have a small staff. There's 7 of us total, including the 2 owners and myself. And we were able to maintain all of our staff through the pandemic, which was incredible. And have only had to add on 1 more person since then, but that's also great because that means that we're open and we're making beer, we're doing business. So, I think they're really excited to get back into the bigger summer events that we do.
What types of events have you been hosting so far?
Every February, we also do the date with your dog thing where we partner with the local animal shelter and we get a photographer to come in and you get a picture taken with your dog. So that was probably the first event that we did this year. And we actually had quite a few people who signed up. And again, like Tiare said, we did it differently from last year. Last year, it was just a swarm of people. They all came in at once because it was pre-pandemic. And it was chaos. Even for just what we were doing, it wasn't structured the best way it could be, and that's the best thing about every event is it's a learning experience. And so if you're taking notes and you're what worked, what didn't, how can we make this better? How can we make this run smoother? After every event, it's just going to make you more successful each time. So this year we did it differently where we had it broken up into timed increments. Every 30 minutes, there was only 10 slots that you could schedule in during that time. And then that way you only had this many people showing up during this window. But then we had a really bad bout of bad weather. It was snowing and gross and cold. And of the almost 30 people that signed up, we only had like 5 who actually showed up, which was great for the shelter because they still got to keep all of that, you know, the funds that were accumulated through that. But we had staffed that, you know, like there were people there, the photographer was there. And so it just kind of made it not great, but that's weather in the high plains or the Rockies. I'm sure Katie knows over there in Boulder. So, but then we,
Yeah,
so
we get, oh goodness, there's hail.
yeah, out of nowhere. Like it was, the sun was shining like 2 minutes ago. What's going on? Anyway, we've got our Summertime on the Streets event that's coming up where they actually block off different sections of downtown, and there's live music and street performers and all kinds of different stuff, and it really just encourages people to get out on their feet walking around downtown and exploring all the businesses that are here. I would say that our culture here in Cheyenne is not like, it's not the walking culture, you know, like if you're in Colorado, you assume that you're going to park your car in some parking garage and you're going to have to walk a few blocks to get where you want to go. But it's like here, if you can't park out front, people just don't want to go. But every single business last year saw like an exponential increase in foot traffic and sales during this event. And it was the first time that we had gotten in like a temporary ordinance for open container, and it was, at that time, it was the best sales day we'd ever had in our whole entire history of ever, which then was surpassed actually at our, we host, Cheyenne has Frontier Days, which is like 10 days of rodeo, and that's probably what we're known for above anything. Like if that's why people know about us is because of Frontier Days. But they didn't have Frontier Days last year. They canceled it because of the pandemic. And we always have the middle of the week is Cheyenne Day, where basically half the businesses close down and everybody gets to go out and enjoy themselves for the day. And there's discounts at the park if you're a local, et cetera, et cetera. And we still had our annual Cheyenne Day street party, and there was literally nothing else going on. And so everyone came there. We went through 24 kegs in one day. That never, like, no, that's weeks worth of beer. And so that was the best day in the history of ever at Freedom's Edge. And to be in the middle of a pandemic when that happened was just, it's mind blowing. So we're gearing up for that also. That's coming up next month, and lots of local other events with, like fundraiser activities that we've got going on. We're focusing more on doing things locally this year versus like 2 years ago. We tried to go to as many brew fests as we could, and it was awesome. We loved it, but we want to make money this year, and that's just spending money, you know, or giving money away. And so we're just trying to focus on more local things that we can do here in our own community to still partner with, nonprofits and whatnot. We love to do that, but that's our jam.
I think I've picked up on 2 key things that I learned that Muriah said. One, which was, so your local ordinances to extend alcohol. One thing I learned in the pandemic is, as a business and as a business operator owner, how important it is to be civically engaged and active, because I learned how much I could gain from participating in the Colorado Restaurant Association's different lobbying efforts. Here in Colorado, we were able to extend alcohol to go for on-premise sales. And so we worked together with the Colorado Restaurant Association to get that hopefully extended. And it's a bill that is at our state legislature to make that a permanent thing for, I think it's either a period of 3 to 5 years. So any on-premise property could sell beer, wine, or liquor to go as we ease and as we continue to recover. And that is something. And then all of Colorado did like shut down streets so people could have more outdoor seated capacity with alcohol service. That wouldn't have happened if so many owners and operators were not civically engaged. And so if you see an opportunity to host a street fair or to partner with some other businesses, there was a great example downtown Denver. There's the Exto Event Center, which is primarily places that would hold fashion shows, fundraisers. It's just an event center, just a big open room with bars, and people come in and book it. Well, of course, in the pandemic, they were totally shut down and all of those people were out jobs. So what the whole community, the block around them has several really popular restaurants. Exto rented a big giant weight-bearing tent, employed all of their staff, and the restaurants put together ways to deliver food to the Exto Center in their tent. So you had all of these restaurants gaining business that they lost when indoor dining was shut down, and you had Exto still being able to employ their bartenders. And that we went to the several times so that we could get Hop Alley for dinner and get our drinks from Exto. And we were supporting two businesses who were all lifting each other up. And that was because they had gotten together as a group of businesses and got a permit to have that alcohol and shared space in normally a street where people are parking in a parking lot. And so as owners and operators, like if you have an idea, call your local representative. Work with your city council. Look at the Boulder Chamber of Commerce gave out several grants for events that I've applied for. You know, they're trying to give people grants anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000 with Visit Boulder and the chamber, so that we as operators have some cash to put together an event that drives tourism, that brings people back to Denver. And none of that would really kind of flow as well if we as restaurant owners and operators and brewery operators are not civically engaged. So being civically engaged, I think, is something that I took away that really not only helps build my business, but helps sustain it and helps sustain the community. And so that was one of the biggest takeaways, and will continue to be one of my focuses for events, is finding ways to get creative. And then go ask your city council, go ask your chamber of commerce, ask your local representative, ask them for their help, because that's what they are there for. And don't feel bad about asking them for that help.
Katie, that's a great takeaway there. And Colleen, is there something you'd like to add?
I was just going to say, we had almost the exact same experience in Charlottesville. Like, Virginia is a very conservative alcohol state, and the fact that all the different restaurant organizations got together and went and said to our lawmakers, you have to stop, really just holding us down by not even allowing to-go beer and to-go cocktails and things like that. It was huge. And now, like, we have a walking mall like you do in Boulder, and it's the same concept. We have a little, we've just put in for some legislation to, potentially have that be open container, which when Muriah was talking about that, I'm just like, oh my God, what a dream. Because I mean, we're very conservative here in Virginia, and it's a little bit tough, but a bunch of the restaurants on our walking mall got together and tented a parking lot and did the exact same thing. And it allowed folks like us, like, I'm sure there was this huge wave in all of your communities too. It's like, support local, keep it local. And, even when it was tight money times at home, we still tried to, like, if we're going to go out to eat, it's got to be local this week. And we would go down to that tent and, buy a hamburger from that business who, potentially had to let some people off. And, Katie's spot on. If you have an idea, push and push and push and be very persistent, because I was shocked at how the ABC, really responded, and very quickly too, to allowing us, to take those creative ideas and put them into play. And there's definitely value in that advice for sure. I second everything you said.
I agree, Colleen. And, getting involved with your local community is extremely important. Teaming up with your neighbors to make change happen is how we have to do it. Now, looking at the events you're actually planning in your tap rooms, and Colleen, you've got quite a few of those. Are you finding that these events, you're involving more partners than you would typically involve because we're all in this together? Or do you find that you're just planning those typical taproom events like trivia? You bring your, dog to get a picture taken. Are you bringing in more of your local community to your space to work together?
I don't know that we're bringing in more. One of our tenets at Three Notched is that Our business is built on collaborations. So we brew a lot of beers with organizations, whether you're, a nonprofit or some kind of educational situation or something like that, or even just a community group that hasn't quite formed a 501c3 or something. So I think for us, we're at that point where we're bringing those relationships back to the table, because I think as enthusiastic as we are to get people back in our tap rooms and get the beer flowing at those huge rates again, a lot of people aren't quite there yet in Virginia. There are some nervous kind of pockets, and they're kind of going through the same growing pains as we are. It's like we used to hope, like, we have a private room we let nonprofits use for free all the time, and it's been empty, on Mondays and Tuesdays, because they've been doing this. They've been meeting virtually, and we're just starting to get those folks back in our tap rooms and just starting to kind of reopen those bridges back up and have those people back. For us, if you're a nonprofit, we'll bend over backwards. I mean, we will happily do pint nights and use our rooms for free. And how can we help use our beer as a marketing vehicle for you? And I'm very thankful to see those folks kind of coming out from behind the bushes and getting back engaged in their own ways. And slowly but surely we'll get there. So we're not necessarily having more partnerships so much as just seeing some of the, formal ones that we had kind of come back to the table, which is really great.
That is really great. Now, for everyone else, are you seeing more partnerships, or are you kind of taking the same route as Colleen?
I personally, we have taken on a couple new ones. The one that I guess I'm most excited about is the local Frisbee golf club. They reached out to us recently. My husband is an avid Frisbee golfer, and I'm sure through him just yapping about our beer to his Frisbee golf buddies, they were like, let's have a party. So we did an award ceremony for one of their local competitions recently, and the next big one to come up is in August, is the Wyoming Open, and it's going to bring, a couple hundred people here to play Frisbee golf. And so we're really excited to set up some baskets out in the street out front and get down on some Ring of Fire and some other games and meet a bunch of new people in the Frisbee golf community.
Now, for all of you, there's a lot of outdoor-based events. Have you started doing more indoor events? Or are you still trying to keep the focus in your outdoor spaces? Katie, you're nodding your head.
Well, we're doing a little bit of both. I was going to mention one of the most successful events that we have done that I've seen a lot of return for, and that's kind of a new and different partnership that's really easy for tap rooms to do, is we've done a lot of PTO fundraisers. So we work with the Manhattan Middle School, and 20% of proceeds on any given day goes back to the PTO. And it's really great because people can dine in, they can take out, and they can sit outside on a patio, or they can sit inside. And it's a way for us to engage with kind of our target market too, right? We love having the college kids at CU in, but quite frankly, I want some people that are a little bit older, that have families, that are going to create that regular business. And then once we have them as regulars, and once we've kind of endeared ourselves to them, then they're coming to us for the graduation parties, they're coming to us for the soccer parties. And so I've really always found success in working with schools, even though it is alcohol. Parents love to drink, right? And so we've done a couple of these school fundraisers, and it generates a couple extra $1,000 in sales for us, and we're giving 20% back to that PTO. And it's a really safe way to do it. People can dine with their families, they can take it to go, or they can set up groups that they're comfortable with. The one that we did most recently, it was a really nice split between a father looped it in with his daughter's birthday, and then there were lots of individual families who just wanted to sit by the, with their family unit still. There were some that took food to go, we brought it out to their car. And then there was a group of 12 that got 3 families together at one big table. So I find that, parents are always willing to donate to their students and give back to the school. And then you're creating that regular that's going to bring you other events down the line. So I think it's just a real simple and easy way to execute an event that's not too stressful on your staff either, because it's what they're doing every day. and
That's
it's
great
not
insight.
anything additional.
And yeah, you've mentioned great donation style events, Katie. Colleen, you've talked about your nonprofits. In Texas, Tiare, what type of events are you focusing on? Are you seeing more charity-based events, more private events, more public events? What are you seeing success with?
Well, something to go back to in terms of outdoor events, we did bring something in, I guess back in September, really. We partnered with HTX Market. It's just this one lady that decided to throw together a bunch of local vendors like artisans, whether that's clothing, candle makers, soap makers, local farmers. She's just kind of picked a few vendors, and she's actually taken off with it. She goes to almost every brewery within, I guess, 10 to 15 miles of us. And so when I first saw, she posted up actually across the street at one of our neighborhood bars, and they were just in the parking lot. A few tents popped up, and I walked over and I said, "Hey, what can I do to get you over here on my property?" So essentially we expanded with the bar across the street, and we host every first and third Friday of the month. It's the Market Fridays, and we've got at least 20 vendors that we kind of block off half of our parking lot, and then we've got vendors kind of spaced out throughout our property. And everybody knows it's a big drive on Friday nights. We provide live music. We've got 2 food trucks, and then again, it's partnered with the bar across the street, so there's a lot of foot traffic that happens. So that's been super successful, and a lot of people, enjoy it. I've got a really great salsa vendor that I buy from every other week. So it's been a good push. In terms of like community stuff, we've always been super supportive of local schools. We're in the heart of a pretty popular neighborhood. There's tons of Montessori's, elementary schools. We actually hosted Waltrip High School. They're a local high school down the street. They did their first in-person fundraising event here with us. And like the girls said, we stopped charging for space for anyone like that. Before the pandemic and even now, it just makes sense. You bring in new customers, and then that'll lead to more business, just more interaction through the community. Like after we hosted the fundraiser 2 weeks ago, they initially loved the space. They felt very safe because we gave them our whole front garden, which we don't normally do, but we did it just to make them feel extra safe. And they want to host all of their alumni events here now. So that's just another addition. And anytime there's fundraising events, auctions, we always are more than willing to partner up and donate, swag, merchandise. Something that we did, I don't know if you guys are capable of doing it, but it's we partner a brew experience into a silent auction. And basically you can show up and shadow and learn how to brew beer, and have a beer tasting with your brewer, and all that is a fancy certificate, and you can put that in a silent auction package. And we've been told that it's gone for $2,000 at a silent auction. So whatever,
wow.
Yeah, just to learn how to brew for the day, and really you're just drinking beer and hanging out. But that's a really cool item that we love to offer. It's simple.
No, I have a question about the markets that you hold. Throughout the pandemic, people's visits, whether it's the grocery store or breweries, have been much more intentional. And throughout most of the past year and a half, people have been going less places. As we start to see people, increase their frequency of going to places like breweries, I think one of the appeals of a market, it's a one-stop shop. You can buy a lot of different products at once. Do you feel that's still the appeal of the market, or are people back to their pre-pandemic views where it's just cool to go to like an artisan market? What do you kind of feel from the guest standpoint? Like, why are they enjoying these events?
Just to have some normalcy again. They absolutely are happy to meet their friends, meet their families out, walk around the block with a beer in their hand, and yeah, they're definitely excited and ready. Texas has been ready for a while. I'm sure everybody else is, but it's been interesting to see all the different bars. And like I mentioned, the bar across the street, we actually have a brewery, a winery, a distillery, and a bar all on this street. So it's high traffic, and we all kind of piggyback off of each other. If one person has an event, you see heavy traffic. There's no parking on our street. Our parking lot gets overflowed. Like, people are ready. We've been hitting record numbers all through the spring. Every Saturday, every week is beating out the week before. So people are ready. They just want to get back to normal.
I think people are absolutely craving that. Now, we've talked about just events in general, but what I want to turn the focus to is large events. Just think about the largest event that you are working on right now, or you're hopefully going to be working on soon. What extra considerations are you thinking about when planning these large events? I kind of love to go around the circle and just hear what's in the works. If you've already done a large event, I'd love you to give a little feedback on it.
Our biggest large event, another legislation that was passed 2 years ago actually allowed for us to apply for a malt beverage permit so that we could serve beer outside of the tap room. And so we basically use our jockey box that we would take to festivals, and we set it up across the street with our 4 most popular beers, and then we still have our 8 full beer taps inside. And like I said earlier, we've got somebody like at the front of the street that's selling the tickets, checking IDs. We put armbands on people, so when they do get up to the taps, they're obviously already been checked up. And then we call in volunteers because, like I said, with us having such a small staff, that already takes up 5 of our 7 people just to run. Probably more like 6, because one person is putting wristbands on, the other person's really taking money at the front booth, and then 2 people serving on each taps. So we call all hands on deck. We ask all of our employees to come in, even if it's on their day off, and then we ask for volunteers, people who frequent the brewery, who are our friends, people that we know that are tip certified. Do you want to come in and help us for a couple hours and get tipped out? It takes the pressure off some of our staff, and then we don't have to, like, we're still covered, but we're able to do it all legally. And then just making sure that everybody's diligent, that's the great thing about our staff being so small, is we're all really tight knit, and we're all willing to really help each other. And even like, whether it's our significant others that are coming in and helping out, like changing out the trashes, or, one of our regular volunteers. I've, got a couple in mind that are just like, anything I can do to help you. And, they earn a couple free beers that day, and it's awesome. So that's our one in July that we're just like, we're already prepping for. Since we actually partner with the distillery around the corner for the last couple of years, and so they block off their section of street and we block off ours, and so it's this big L, and we've got live music, and we've got vendors out, and multiple food trucks, and with it, like, we're both family friendly, so there's a lot of kids activities that we do to make sure that the kids are entertained. People bring their dogs out. It's awesome.
That is awesome. Now, Colleen, I'd like to ask you a question, because earlier we talked about the staffing challenges that are currently being faced in Virginia, and as most of the country. As you scale up your events, how are you handling it from a staff perspective? Are you having to reevaluate your service model? What are the considerations you're thinking about as you plan these larger events with unknown staffing needs?
So our large event kind of department is handled a little bit differently, because I come from the festival industry. I used to work in music festivals, and I used to run a rock and roll club, and the staffing there, those people are desperate for work. And, a lot of the 1099ers and the independent contractors and things like that. So I really try to focus, like, for example, when we're talking about large events, we used to host this event called the Virginia Craft Brewers Festival, which was 100+ breweries here in Charlottesville, a couple thousand people over a couple days. And we tabled that, thinking, well, beer festivals are going the way of the buffalo. And now it's all I can think about for our Virginia Beach location is opening up, when we open that up, is having a big ass beer festival in the fall, because people are chomping at the bit, for something to do. And kind of like what everyone's been talking about, it's like you're hitting these record numbers, almost faster than you can keep up with it. And for us, I tend to lean more into my festival. I call them, my festival carnival people, because it's lighting guys and trash guys. And, looking back at the lack of work that they've had over the last year or so, they are stoked to work a beer festival. So, I don't know that I ever would have said after the Virginia Craft Brewers Festival that I would look to another beer festival, but we're ready. I'm ready. I mean, I can't wait. And I know really, because a lot of it is what money can we put back into local breweries and the local economy and helping breweries use it as a marketing vehicle. So, and if we have to be the one to step up because we're one of the big kids on the block, then that's fine. We'll do it. I think it's important. So we'll see how it goes.
No, you're a leader, and good luck with that one. Katie, I know you have to leave in just a minute, but I love some final insight from you about how you're handling these larger events.
So we are just approaching them with what I know we can execute. We have the space to do like 300 people between the upper and lower patios outside, but we made the decision as a team that we were just going to either book the lower patio or the upper patio, and the lower patio's capacity is 60. The upper patio's capacity that we're comfortable with is about 30, 40. And this kind of middle ground area, we just leave open for the restaurant business. I'm not charging for space right now either, not just nonprofits, but in general, just because I believe like I want money to go back I want tangible results for our guests booking. Like I want you to be able to have beer, wine, food, any little extra things we can do for you. So we're kind of easing into it and living within a box that I know we can exceed expectations of guests, rather than saying like, sure, you can have 200 people between the upper and lower patio and just good luck. We're not there as a team. And then as far as festivals and stuff go for the brewery side of things, it's not so much our department, but it's the Ska Brewing side. Ska Brewing has decided that they are only going to participate in events that are paying for the beer or in direct support of a really good account or charity. So no more, there are a lot of beer festivals here in Colorado where they're just for-profit festivals where people are coming to, drink as much 1 ounce pours of beer as possible. And we just don't feel like that sets a good tone. So we are just only participating in festivals that are in direct support of accounts and or contribute back to the community somehow and are paying for our beer, because like Muriah said, like festivals are a great marketing expense, but we can do so much more and put those dollars elsewhere and put those dollars into our people and make sure they are taken care of first, and pass on a lot of those just random for-profit festivals that are starting to come back here. So that's what we're up to, and I'm gonna go open a restaurant. And sorry to leave all of you.
Good luck, Katie, and thanks for sharing all your insight for the past hour with us.
All right, thank you.
Well, as we wind down, we're going to just go around the circle one more time. I just love to hear your general advice that you would offer to another taproom manager or events manager at a brewery planning event. It could either be, a lesson you have learned over time where you made a mistake and you improved on it the next time, or is there just one key takeaway that you found very beneficial for you all in successfully running events again? Anyone can nail this one.
I mean, I would say, like I said earlier, just look at every event as a learning opportunity, as a learning experience, and what can you do better next time? Even if you think that it ran like the smoothest it's ever run, it's like, how can we make it better next time? And for us, it's always important to get feedback from our staff. They're the ones who are in the thick of it, dealing with the people and getting the beer out. And so what can we do to make their lives easier? How can we do better for them next time so that it's less rough on them, I suppose.
So I actually came from an events background. I used to put together fundraisers, golf tournaments for nonprofits, and having the brewery essentially as my venue I sometimes kind of roll my eyes when people are so open to hosting, you know, any type of event. I'm clearly going to be open to it, but I do have to be mindful of my staff, the space, the people that come here for us as a brewery. I always have to remind people, like, we're not a venue. The amount of wedding requests I get is incredible. It's flattering because we do have a beautiful space, but I can't turn away my normal, you know, customers that come here for the space. We're family friendly. Like I said, it's pretty. They love the beer. I'm happy that people are reaching out and wanting to host every type of event, you know, from baby showers to corporate events. And it's a lot of trial and error. It's see what you can do, what you can learn from. We actually hosted a comedy show in our tap room a few months ago. Kind of wanted to wing it and see how it worked, and we sold tickets for it. We shut down the whole property, and then we did table service, again keeping the tap room at 50% capacity, just trying it out and seeing if it worked, and it worked very well. Don't know if we'll continue with that, but it was just something we tried, and we learned from it. Again, with our layout, we're still new on what we can and can't hold. And so I'm open to trying new things. We did shut down one garden for a wedding reception and then had the rest of the property open. We're not going to do that again because it was probably one of the busiest days that we had, and my staff was not very happy with me. But and stuff like that, I ended up being the unofficial wedding planner for that wedding reception that happened, which was fine. It's in me, so I went with it, you know, making sure that the toast was on time, and that was something I could manage, so I was okay with that. But yeah, I think learning, trying things out, and getting feedback from your staff, from the guests that you bring in, what worked, what they didn't like, and then you yourself, what you, during those crazy hours of the event, what you were okay with, what you were overwhelmed with, and what you want to do better next time.
And Tiare, you've touched on so many great points to kind of summarize everything just now. You've talked about communication, you've talked about staff and guest expectations, and you've kind of talked about the whole pandemic philosophy of trying anything once and just seeing what sticks. And it's funny to think about when we did the CBP Spring Virtual Conference last year in 2020, we had someone in April of 2020 talk about pandemic marketing strategies. And I reference this quite a bit because it's a little funny to talk about pandemic marketing strategies when we're, you know, not even 2 months into a pandemic with no idea how long it's going to go. But I feel the conversation we've had today could be very similar. We're talking about replanning events right now, but truly you're going to learn so much just by getting back out there and doing this. And if we had this conversation again in just 3 months, there could be new lessons learned. You might find new strategies that work. I think it's going to be a completely, you know, ever-changing, evolving experience, which I think is part of the fun and why we love being in the craft beer industry.
Yep.
And Colleen, I'm going to throw it back. Yeah, fun. I'm going to throw it back to you to kind of send us out. You know, advice you could give or lessons you have learned, and any just general takeaway about the importance of that in planning an event.
All of these things that everybody has said, including Katie, is so spot on. I mean, every little bit, the being creative, being patient with yourself, your staff. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I have been in a chaotic, we call it like a pirate ship, when it's like about to get off the rails, and you take a second and you're like, what is wrong with this event? Let me make a mental note now. Like, those like self-check-ins are really important, and it's certainly something that, you know, we've learned in the pandemic. It's like okay to take a second. I echo every bit of advice that all of these lovely women have, you know, provided today, and agree wholeheartedly. And just be patient with yourself and your staff, and get creative, and allow yourself the wide berth, you know, to plan things out, and that it's okay to not, you know, cram a million things down the pipeline, which we probably would have done pre-pandemic, and it's not the case now. So whether you're a big brewery or a small brewery, or you've got 10 people or 10,000 people, I think the biggest lesson from the pandemic is just take a second. Like, take a second and do what's best for your brewery and your establishment and your staff and your people. You're going to be the only one that defends and stands up for you, and that's okay. So, which is huge. I don't know I would have said that pre-pandemic. So, can't say it enough.
And Colleen, I can only imagine how busy you are overseeing events at so many different locations. And if I could add one thing, we've got a lot of great insight on the table today. But talk to your peers in the industry, build relationships with other taproom managers, because as we've learned today, someone's idea that they've been doing for 2 years could be something that someone else has never thought of before. And just, sharing ideas, insight, and strategies can benefit the craft beer industry as a whole. And Muriah, Colleen, Tiare, and Katie, who stepped out a minute early, I really appreciate you for just sharing all your thoughts today. It's been really beneficial. I hope everybody watching has gained a little insight in that one takeaway they can apply to their tap room or tap room. So I appreciate the 4 of you, and let's have a busy summer and good luck. I'm looking forward to touching base to see how all these busy events go. Talk to you all soon.
Thank
Cheers.
you.